We welcome Katy Torres for the last talk of this morning, Cooperation for Transformation of a Destructive Socioeconomic System.
Okay, well, thanks for having invited me to give this talk in this conference. Well, this is, oops, wait a minute. This is a conference with a very important theme. Deeply inspired by it, I have decided to structure this brief talk around two key concepts, two key actions, which I find very relevant to have the possibility to get out of the crossroads where we find ourselves in, out of the seas of consequences of the current industrial civilization, transformation and cooperation. And I will give the talk from the critical perspective of ecological economics, the school of economic thought where I develop my work, a school that is fundamental to understanding the principles underlying conventional economics that fuel current sustainability policies. I want to show you the contradictions in these policies which help explain why institutional action oriented to protect our ecosystems paradoxically contributes to perpetuating a socioeconomic system that is destructive to nature and people's lives. I'd like to stimulate this way critical reflection on how you can contribute from your field of works, fields of study, to improving the ecological and social conditions of your territories where you live or of the planet in general, inviting you to undertake truly transformative actions and projects. Okay, so today we are witnessing the crisis of a globalized world that is increasingly destructive to the planet and the living beings that inhabit it. Of the nine planetary boundaries which define the safe operating space for humanity with respect to the Earth system, the stable environmental conditions for the humanity to thrive, we have already crossed 7. We have global warming, which has made the summer of 2025 the hottest in Spain since records began. A global warming which provokes fires and rises the sea level, which is likely to lead to the collapse of the Atlantic Ocean circulation, which will strongly affect European climate, which explains why 1/3 of the world's river basins experience normal conditions in 2024 and why water cycles are becoming more erratic. A global warming which also degrades coral reefs in warm waters, a problem that has already reached a point of no return, which has caused also the collapse of the Greenland and West Antarctic ice sheets and has led to the winter peak ice cover in Antarctica last year being the 3rd lowest since records began. A global warming that has also led to the permafrost to melt, and which also generates climate refugees, among other socio-ecological impacts. We have also crossed the loss of biodiversity boundary. Today, for instance, more than 60% of the world bird species are in decline. We are also surrounded by chemical pollution on the land, in the sea, in the air, from plastics, synthetic products, heavy metals, pesticides, and fertilizers, which alters biogeochemical flows and degrades freshwater ecosystems, seriously affecting human health. And we are also surrounded by ecological impacts derived from land use changes, all this being boundaries which have also already been transgressed. And recently, we have also crossed ocean acidification, which has reached a critical point that could lead to serious and irreversible environmental impacts. Even worse, all these impacts not only accumulate and intensify over time, but also feedback on each other. As if this were not enough, the devastation caused by the socioeconomic system is compounded by that caused by the widespread use of firearms in an increasing number of armed conflicts that seek to perpetuate the system. The most extreme example of which is the ongoing tragedy in Palestine, which has culminated today with the shameful collusion of the international community in the genocide of its people by Israel. And don't forget about this, also by the US, an essential support for this. A disgrace that has been exacerbated by the tragedy in Iran. All these despicable acts added to those in Sudan, Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Lebanon, Ukraine, and so on. Devastation that not only destroys infrastructure, cities, towns, and cultural heritage, but also ecosystems and hundreds of thousands of human lives, which can also lead to greater threats to global peace in a frightening upward spiral. Worse still, the gradual improvement of firearms through technological advances encourages their use, contributing to further accelerating the planet's socio-ecological destruction, since by allowing more precise killing from even greater distance, it has made it possible to depersonalize the target, facilitating its elimination. It is not surprising then that the aerial bombardments and nuclear bombs have become the primary tools of mass destruction for exercising impersonal violence in armed conflicts. Clean violence that artificial intelligence has taken to the extreme with the automation of murder and extermination. We can therefore say that the nature of our socioeconomic system is doubly destructive, as it requires destruction through firearms in order to continue destroying through profit maximization. So it is urgently needed to transform our current socio-economic system. And for this transformation, we undoubtedly need cooperation, the other key concept. We then need to cooperate, yeah, but cooperating how? With researchers from different fields, yeah. Who, how? That's important. All this is very important. Cooperating with other people, no matter what they do, yeah, that's important too. But especially what we need is to cooperate with nature, something that the current socioeconomic system ignores, as we just saw it. It destroys it. This means that the first step towards the urgently needed transformation is to recognize that our system is part of a larger system, the biosphere, which has shown us that the sustainability of life over time has been possible thanks to symbiosis, cooperation between the different living beings that comprise it, and not thanks to competitive behaviors. And this is what ecological economics reminds us, that human beings are eco-dependent and interdependent, and therefore our system can only be sustainable over time through mutuality and mutual enrichment, rather than through competitiveness and destruction. Although it was formally established as a discipline in the 80s of the past century, the first ideas surrounding ecological economics appeared in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. As one of the founders in Spain of this economic thought school, Joan Martinez Alier, reminds us. Ecological economics are an eco-integrating approach, as explained by the other founder of the discipline in Spain, Joan's friend and co-author, José Manuel Naredo. An approach that warns us of the need to connect each and every field of knowledge, whether they work from the scientific rationality or not. Ecological economics is therefore a multi-dimensional and transdisciplinary approach, which within the framework of a systems economy does not ignore the principles of ecology and thermodynamics. An approach that warns us that the economic process is entropic and that economic analysis must go beyond monetary analysis and focus above all on analyzing the biophysical dimension of economies, studying their social metabolism and questioning the biophysical limits to growth. an approach linked to political ecology, the discipline that interprets the eco-social crisis as a manifestation of power relations and studies the socio-ecological conflicts associated with the transformation of nature caused by the capitalist system. Unfortunately, however, conventional economics, which dictates the rules and is dominated by the neoclassical economic status quo, is far removed from the mittens of ecological economics. Conventional economics interprets the relationship between the socioeconomic system and nature in a very different and unrealistic way. It considers nature as something external to us, as just another study object, which has no value in itself, and which, if we must protect it, is only because it is useful to us, because it provides us with many ecosystems, goods, and services. This is how its branch, environmental economics, explains it. And this is a problem, because misunderstanding our relationship with nature in this way prevents us from moving toward more ecologically and socially healthy scenarios. It implies that by considering nature as an external object that we want to dominate, we instrumentalize and commodify it. It implies that we define environmental problems as market failures, specifically as negative externalities, which are alien to the system and unintended. It implies that we ignore the influence of the socio-political context and power relations in the socio-ecological crisis we are experiencing. It implies that we ignore the biophysical limits to growth. Ultimately, all this implies that we accept as universal and moral the principles of conventional economics, which presents itself as a neutral science free of ideology, in which Kay Rayworth, author of Downward Economics, simplifies well in one of her many talks, multiple talks. She says it implies considering individuals to be rational consumers, homo economicus, who selfishly seek to maximize their well-being, individual well-being, a rationality that is considered virtuous. It implies considering that the price system, the markets, is the best social mechanism for allocating resources, the most efficient and optimal one, that one that maximizes the well-being of us, all of us, and leads to so-called market equilibria. And it implies also that economic growth is, the social goal that we to which we need to, or we must aspire, a goal that, by the way, only became a political objective in the late 80s of the past century, at the beginning of what has come to be known as the neoliberal era, with the arrival in power of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. As a result of all this, we design today environmental policies, strategies, plans, agendas, which seek to perpetuate the current socioeconomic system by painting it green. Policies that, ignoring biophysical limits, pursue sustainable development and circular economy based on continuous economic growth, also referred to as green, inclusive, sustainable, as defined in the 1987 Brundtland Report and under the umbrella of the related concepts of blue and green economy. Policies that enthrone the concepts of market efficiency, productivity, profitability, competitiveness, capital, innovation, and economic benefits. Policies that adopt a weak sustainability perspective and therefore view nature as a giant puzzle called capital, natural capital, that can be replaced by physical capital, enshrining the concepts of decarbonization, carbon markets, offsetting, carbon neutrality, and net emissions. This means that we will be sustainable even if we destroy nature, provided that we invest the income generated by destruction in infrastructure and technology. This means, consequently, that the advanced capitalist countries, which are largely responsible for the planet's socio-ecological destruction, present themselves as the most sustainable economies in the world, precisely because of their greater capacity for savings and investment. Policies that divert attention from the analysis of resources and land to the analysis of waste and climate, moving away from the analysis of causes to focus on the analysis of effects. Policies which rely on technological solutions to solve a problem that is socio-political, emphasizing the green technologies and the green energy transition and digitalization, ignoring the material limits of technology and the socio-ecological costs that come with it. Policies that are also turning access to raw materials into a matter of continental security and existential continuity through a process of securitization. Such a process, which materializes through processes of construction of new narratives, turns ordinary political problems, economic, social, environmental, into matters of national security. Contradictions that help to explain why they are designed in conjunction with policies that degrade the planet's resource base and cause serious socio-ecological impacts. Ecological economics teaches us that it is the predatory metabolism of industrial civilization that has caused us to exceed 7 of the 9 planetary boundaries and is leading us toward irreversible climate disaster. And that if we do not reverse the situation, it will lead to a catastrophic global loss of biodiversity. If we truly want to combat climate change and all environmental problems, we must urgently reverse the damage we cause every day to the land, soil, water, vegetation, local, terrestrial, and marine ecosystems as a result of human activities, which are accelerating, as are the extractive practices that fuel them. Damages that are based on social inequality and the violation of fundamental human rights. In short, ecological economics teaches us that we need to transform our socio-economic system. And this will require a change in the rules of the game that guide the evolution of world trade and finance, which servile to the ideology of economic growth generate the monetary flows, profits, and capital gains that are behind the current socio-ecological crisis. After 30 years of the global climate agenda, emissions have only been interrupted during periods of economic recessions. Naredo reminds us that in order to help us live with our problems, the human mind tends to believe that issues can be resolved through methods, institutional incantations, and delaying tactics without the need to change the context that generates them. But this is not possible. Reality urgently demands a profound transformation of the current socio-economic system. It demands reducing the economy to ecologically viable frameworks. And we can do it if we want to. It is up to us to get to work in this hostile context in which large-scale social mobilization will undoubtedly be necessary. So let's cooperate with nature from a place of humility, which means understanding and loving it. And let's begin to work together to transform rather than perpetuate a system that is killing us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Katie. That was, I go to negotiations, and that felt like listening to a very good politician. Yeah, any questions?
We can also talk during the lunch because I understand it's a little bit late. It's fine. You can make questions.
Yeah,
up to you.
Questions at least.
Good.
This is Elena. Thank you, Karen, for the talk. So my question is about this vision from ecological economics, raising their voices from almost decades ago. So in your perspective, how is this discourse being uptaken by international policy and science for decision making? And I can cite IPBS or the COPs, but it can be any example or your impression on how much this vision is somehow being uptaken at all, and what would be good examples? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, as you saw, the key of my talk was about the contradictions of the current policy, and that current policy is dominated by the principles of conventional economics, no doubt about that. But it's true that it appears here the name of Kay Rayworth, is the author, the creator of the donut economics concept. And I know that, they have a lab and they're working a lot on proposals around ecological economics issues to be implemented in different cities and in different towns all over the world. So that could be a way to, introduce that. And the rest is, we talk about that within the social movements, in the academia, in critical conferences. There are many, many people following this, but what happens is that normally faculties of economics are globally dominated by neoclassical economics. And this is a debate that is very recurrent. And actually, we are having a debate in the Faculty of Economics here in this university about how we can reform the degrees in economics, because students are not taught those other types of economics out of school. And for sure, ecological economics is another economics out of school. So this is normally taught by teachers like we are working in this, So it's difficult that if we don't educate well, giving all types of knowledge to our students, it's difficult to stimulate critical thinking. And this is what we want, to give all types of knowledge, also neoclassical economics. So it's very important. I talk about those issues to my students in the sense that, hey, look, you need, well, it's very funny because, the first day in my lectures, I always make a question, tourism students. I say, hey, look, do you think sustainability is something good or bad? And everybody says, yeah, it's very good. It's very good. Okay, would you like to contribute to the sustainability of your Balearic Islands economy? Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, we would. Okay, how would you do that? And then the faces start to change. Oh, well, why? Because they have not been taught the analytical tools and the concepts that can allow them to deal with that, So it's very important to educate people. And if we educate people, we can stimulate critical thinking, because we want a society formed by critical thinkers, and that requires all types of knowledge, and if we don't have that, it's going to be very difficult that our representatives and institutions are critical thinkers. And at the moment, what we have, I always use the same example. Same example to my students regarding, it's a very good exercise. You take the climate change law, everybody wants to fight against global warming. So we know we have a climate change law in the Balearic Islands, 2019, launched in 2019. Then it came the climate change law in Spain. Then we have the European climate change law. Then you can go to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and see all the rules, all the principles dictating the policies. And all is very similar. You see, that all is about green technology, is about trying to solve a problem which is socio-political through technology, which is a new path for economic growth. So it's difficult. So we definitely need to educate people. We need to educate, and it's difficult. At the moment, our representative, we have had some examples, people that try to talk about no growth or degrowth. There have been some, the kind of workshops at the European Parliament, if I'm not wrong, 3 years ago in 2023, that has been replicated in Madrid last year about degrowth. They start to be a little bit open, but that's all. Because then the policies and climate change law is a very good example to see that it's like replicated. It's like a copy-paste law, from one region to another that just promotes exactly the same. So what do we need to do? We need to be curious, intellectually curious, learn and have all types of knowledge and, you know, contribute to that in our classes. Give all types of knowledge for people, because this is the only way for people to question things. Yeah, if you just teach one thing, that's not, you know, it's not, that doesn't make possible, no, to stimulate critical thinking. So yeah, we have a problem. Yeah, we definitely have a problem, but that's why we are here, huh? So,
One chain question.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for actually raising these issues, because it's sometimes feel different and not necessarily difficult, but different hearing it from scholars and citizens of the countries that for so long, maybe those from the majority world have been writing and shouting about some of the issues that you're actually highlighting here. And sometimes it becomes quite frustrating, but hearing it from you as a scholar and also a citizen of the EU, European Union entity, it's really brave. And I guess, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
This is the last one. The last one, because we have the last question. So,
Oh, be careful.
It was a pleasure. Having been trained in ecological economics, it was very nice to hear your talk. And I was just wondering, I did my work on the sea, on marine issues, and that's why I'm also here. And I found out that there was almost nothing on marine issues from ecological economics. And if there was something, was basically the least critical part of ecological economics, like Constanza and others trying to you know, give monetary values to ecosystem services, which of course it's a complicated one. You can use it in both ways. But I was just wondering, have you ever, did you know about that? Like why there is this lacuna on the ocean from ecological economics? And if you have any ideas of how we could tackle that just blaring lacuna in the field.
Well, my guess was there was a lack of research, but I don't know a lot about that, because with all the people I'm working with, economists, basically ecological economists, they normally don't, you know, have not worked on that, on ocean and maritime issues. And now Jose Manuel Nareda comes to my mind, because sometimes we're being asked about marine and maritime and marine ecosystems, oceans, and we always said, well, I cannot go there because, you know, we have been working on extractivism, you know, terrestrial ecosystems, and yeah, I cannot tell you if there is or not, but I would say that no, maybe Ivan knows a little bit more about. It's not my area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you mentioned, but when you read the marine biologists, so they have been working on decades. Then you realize that they are applying the social metabolism. So they are doing a sort of, for instance, social metabolism of fisheries.
Yeah,
remember a paper
that's right.
Daniel Pauly in 19, he published, I think it was 1994, 1995. And the primary production of fisheries was that's ecological economics. But the result was so everybody is not as much as how you define yourself, but what you like when you.
Well, that's right.
Now is that there has been historically small, very little connection between ecological economics and people working in marine biology. But I think that's it has been overcome for that year. Of your expression of that.